Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So today we've got a new firmware for the PL18 Ultra. This is a dev firmware, so unlike the FCC or standard that have got fixed power levels, the dev firmware should give you options to adjust the power output level. So let's bring in for a close-up look, see how we go on doing the update, see if we run into any issues, and then see if we can find any adjustable power levels. So let's crack on. So we have our PL18 transmitter. So we've got the PL18 Ultra, we've got our little Lenovo Legion Go. So as always, first thing we're going to do is go to flysky-cn.com. We're going to click on products, we're going to scroll down, we're going to go to PL18 Ultra, going to scroll down and go to downloads and upgrades, and then on here we can see we've got as normal firmware, we've got as FCC firmware, and then we've got as dev firmware along with the SD card files for Wtf. But this is going to be an interesting one. I would use the latest version of Flysky Assistant, so I've already done videos showing how we download that and install it. So for me, I'm going to download the dev firmware. And then I'm going to run Assistant to make a backup of our model memories. I would always do that whenever you're updating any firmware or anything like that. It's just good practice to get into. Some of the software updates just rewrite certain portions, so they don't need the whole flash, and they don't use the part for the model memory, so they don't rewrite it. Some firmware updates do rewrite it. As a precaution, I would always actually back up your model memories. Likewise, when we do the update, I'd always update the firmware, and the first thing I would do is run calibration. It just stops issues occurring. So for me, we're going to download this to a desktop. I've got an Assistant folder and then a PL18 folder. So we can see we've got as last firmware that we downloaded was the 2218. We've got a folder for old files and everything, so I'm going to download this. It doesn't take long to download, and then if we reopen that folder, if we open this up, we can see we've got our standard 2218 and we've got 2218 dev. So if you wanted to, you could move that to the old folder just to tidy it up so we know which one we're going to be running. And in this old folder, I tend to keep older firmwares now, so I can roll back to them if required. And then we've got as SD files for Wtf, but we're only really concerned in the dev software for this. Now I wouldn't have that open, because the first thing we're going to do is power up as transmitter and fire up our Assistant software. So then I'm going to take the USB-C cable and we're just going to plug that into the port on the top of the transmitter. And then we can tell it to put the device online. And then wait for Assistant, it'll show it. We can click on it. We can click Export, Load TX Memories. This will let you back up everything you've got. I've only got one on here because I've been messing around with it. If you've got multiple, you can click all, or you can just tick the ones you want, then select Export. For me, I like to go back to my desktop, Assistant folder, as PL18 Ultra folder, and then I'll just save and back up in here. Keep everything together. Gets a lot more confusing for me because I've got pretty much every one of the major transmitters that Flysky released I have got. I think currently I don't have the G7P Plus. I don't have one of them, but I think there's very few that I don't have. So once we've got this backed up, we can close Assistant. We go back to our folder with PL18 Ultra. We can see we've got the dev firmware. So now Let's see if we can focus on the actual transmitter. So let's bring that in. So what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to go to our main menu. We're going to go to General. We're going to scroll down and you'll see Firmware Update. So once we're on that, we can click it. Click Yes. That'll put us transmitter into Firmware Update mode. You'll see it go off and then come back on. Then we're going to go back to our PC. We're going to open the PL18 Ultra dev software. So it'll still say on both 2218 because it's technically the same firmware, but you'll see it detects your transmitter here and the hardware version, and we can just click Update. Now what'll be interesting to see on this, if it does actually reset the model memories. If it doesn't, then all well and good. I'd always make up a backup of my models, especially if anything's changed or if it's a new version of Flysky Assistant. Just covers your own back really. I mean, if you were to have a fall or an accident and destroy your transmitter, it's hard. It's an annoying problem to have to buy a new transmitter because you've dropped it and smashed it to pieces. It is even worse if you've then got to go through and manually configure every single one of your RCs that you've got. At least if you've got a backup, you can just restore them to a new transmitter. Especially if friends or family get another RC that's same as yours. Yes, you'll have to set endpoints on servos and whatnot, but the main configuration, you can just give them the file and then let them set theirs up. And it's far easier to just tweak servo settings than it is to have to go all the way through and set them up from scratch. So that's quickly gone through and reset. It has just restarted itself, so we can close the updater. We can close that folder down. So let's get the transmitter back in focus. So we can tell it to charge because we don't want to connect back. So it doesn't look like it's overwritten the model memories, so that's not going to be a concern for us. You don't need to restore. So if we go to General, then we can scroll down. If we go to About, it is showing the dev firmware, so we are seeing that. So the RF module, it's showing firmware 1.7. Let's click Update, see if that changes. So still showing 1.7, but with it being an update that affects the TX power, I thought probably better off run that. So as always, I would run stick calibration. Whenever you update firmware, it's always better to have peace of mind that you've run the calibration. At least then you know you stand a better chance of your RCs not going wildly out of control. So once we've run calibration, if we go into his main menu and we come across to RF settings, if we scroll down here and have a look, we've now got power settings. So if we look at settings, it looks like the stock one has set it to 100 milliwatt, 20 dBm. We've also got 25 milliwatt, 14 dBm, 250, which is 24 dBm, and 500, which is 27 dBm. And we can just flick through these. Just be mindful, the higher the TX power, the quicker you're going to burn through your battery. So just be mindful when you set that. But it is nice that we now do have an option for the internal module to actually control as power. And I think everything else should be the same on it. I haven't seen a change log, but there's nothing else listed that's changed for it. So yeah, quite successful. We've got it installed. It's not overwrit our model memories, so although we've got it backed up, we don't need to run through and restore it. As I say, not every update writes over the entire flash, so it looks like this one just changes the bit that's relative to power control. And if you are looking for that, it's into your model basic memory and then RF settings, and you can see it down here. And you've got your internal, external. Strange, internal and external. I'm not seen that on a few transmitters. But yeah, it is nice to just be able to come in here and change as power. What I would say with this, especially Simso, you can drop it down to 25 milliwatt if you're just using this for a crawler or a truck, which I know a lot of people do. Probably nice to get the extended battery life by dropping the TX power down. If you're not using it for flight and ultra long range, likewise, if you're going to use this to do speed runs, nice to be able to whack it straight up to 100 milliwatt. But on a speed run, I'd probably be running an external module and a bloody big antenna. But yeah, really nice to have options. Nice to see Flysky doing things like this. You don't get it with a lot of manufacturers, but I know we've seen this on the FRM 303 module, dev firmware to allow us to do what we want power-wise. Nice to see it on an actual transmitter, but yeah, obviously you're not going to do anything illegal with this and set it to higher power ratings than what you're allowed in your country of use. I'm sure none of you are going to do that just to get extra range on your RCs, but there you go. It's entirely up to you. Let's wrap this one up. So there we have it, the PL18 Ultra on the dev firmware, fully controllable output transmission power. So hopefully you find that useful. I can definitely see how it'd have uses. Even being able to drop the power down. As I say, if you're using only short range transmission for RC vehicles, rock crawlers you don't tend to be miles away from, the big trucks you don't tend to be miles away from, some of the digging equipment and things like excavators and that, if you want to use this transmitter for that kind of use, not going to be too many miles away from it. You might want to drop it down to 25 milliwatts transmission power just to extend your battery life. But likewise, if you don't, you've got the option of whacking it up to full power. You're probably going to burn through your battery quicker, but if that extra range and extra transmission power is useful for you, you're going to know that it burns through battery anyway. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching Wtf Rc Cars. Hopefully you find this useful, entertaining, bit of both, just like listening to my incessant ramblings. But don't forget to like and subscribe, share to friends and family if you want to bore them stiff, and catch you guys again in the next one.